Cognitive load theory.
Right,
Got
we're
it.
we're on it now. Okay.
Hello. 你好.
Hello. Ni hao.
안녕하세요. konnichiwa.
Xin chào,
감사합니다.
konnichiwa.
Not yet.
네. Yeah, welcome to our second podcast. As you can see, podcast.
Podcast. I thought it said
Yeah.
PST. Psst.
Yeah, so where should we start?
Well, my name is Calvin.
Yes.
And I'm
Yes.
a dentist in Auckland. And I've known Steve for 15 plus years since 2008.
Yeah, that's when I came back from the army.
Yeah. So
Yep.
it's 16 years.
16 years, yeah.
Yeah.
And
so
yes, and I guess I was saying that I was been always interested in consciousness. Would you say? I mean, I had difficult time trying to understand like different concepts to do with academic stuff because on the back of my head there was always this thing about what is consciousness, and I wanted to understand it. Like I was, as you say, I was a seeker of this knowledge. And it led me down this rabbit hole where I was very much fascinated with Eastern philosophy, like Tao and yin yang and stuff like that. But as you know, I'm a science teacher, and I still studying these concepts around the scientific ideas. And recently, I've been making some headway into the Western philosophy, like starting with the Greeks, Aristotle's and stuff like that, and all the way to 20th century philosophers. And but yeah,
so cognitive load theory.
Yes. Well, tell me a little bit of what you understand by that, because it's quite a educational research terminology. A layperson would probably not have heard of it.
Yeah. So I think that it's true that we have so much capacity in our short-term memory. And once we exceed that capacity, whether it be 2 tasks or 10 tasks, then a couple of things can happen. We forget the previous tasks, or we just shut down because we're overloaded and stressed, right? And as you wrote, the key to long-term understanding is to be able to put these parcels of knowledge into not just your long-term memory, but make it so that it's readily accessible. Because sometimes we think, I remember going to this place 10 years ago, and you have to think for about 5 minutes before you remember, right? But that's not useful in terms of applying knowledge. You have to be able to retrieve it very, very quickly.
Retrieval, yes.
Retrieval is very, it has to be like a habit, or an almost subconscious thought process.
Like a muscle memory for your mind.
Like muscle memory. Yeah.
You can pull it out. You can just pull that knowledge out of somewhere deep inside the back of your head.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
On demand.
So I think certainly for adults, the load that we can carry cognitively it reduces as time goes by. For a lot of reasons. Clearly, as adults, we don't process things the way that we did when we were children, but also we have a lot of other things to worry about, or other things that catch our attention. Kids, they are brilliant. They have amazing memories. But, for example, they might walk and see something over there and lose it, not pay attention to their peripheral surroundings and stumble and fall. Whereas for most adults, we would always keep aware of danger. And if we see something, suddenly we're looking at it. So it's sort of like, let's say we're trying to learn something, but at the back of our mind, we're probably thinking, well, what should I make for dinner? Things like that. Things in the background. Oh, my mortgage payment's coming up. Do I have enough money saved for the next payment? So all of this takes up processing power, like a computer, right? You've got all these things running in the background. Yeah, you're running Zoom at the moment, but you've got all this other stuff happening in the background, and therefore the amount that you can process at one particular time is therefore reduced. And we know that to build habit or develop long-term memory, it's a function of time, it's a function of exposure, and the ability and the process of trying to recall something. Right? So many times I personally have found that when I have forgotten something and I try to recall it, and when I recall it, then that stays in my memory for a very long time. Right? And so this has to be separated by days or weeks, even months perhaps. And what I think some people have been doing is they've been using sleep as a way to create a gap between these exposures. Because you could expose yourself to something 4 times within 24 hours, but it would be more useful if you actually spread it out 4 exposures over a week. Or let's say you expose yourself, you took a nap, you woke up. When you wake up, you feel a bit fresh again, right? So you expose yourself again. And I know some people have been doing that polyphasic sleep thing, where they're sleeping at least 2-3 times a day, or having just naps, and in between exposing themselves to the language or whatever they're trying to learn, and getting quite amazing results. And I think that's a really good way to accelerate your progress, but it's not very social. It's difficult to implement it when you have other responsibilities and regular time scheduled jobs, things like that. Yeah, but in respect to learning for children, then it's a great idea just to have a few things that you're teaching them, and then getting them to engage with their classmates. You are just hands off, or you're just there for support or answering any questions. Let them do something, run around, come back. Okay, part 2. So instead of having one class where, okay, it's 45 minutes long, why not have 15 minutes long teaching, 15 minutes break, open discussion, etc., and then another 15 minutes to reinforce. What do you think?
I back to your point about the exposure and the time factor. So in the research field, they call it the space repetition. So
space repetition.
Like instead of like having them 4 exposures per day, you could spread it out with 4 exposures throughout the week, and so on. And and what you said about within an hour, 15 minutes of teaching, and then a break, and then and as well as the napping. I'm assuming you're saying they learn something, they sleep, they wake up fresh, and then they go back to that, or
and they try to recall. I think that's the key, right? Because learning is not just saying, look, I've heard something, I've seen something, I've done something, okay, I've got it mastered. No, you have to forget it at least a little bit, and then your body has to struggle to relearn it. And I think that strengthens that neural pathway inside your brain. And I remember there was a powerlifter named Pavel Tsatsouline. I think he was Russian. And he was talking about strength training and a concept called greasing the groove. whereby you do, say, a pull-up, couple of pull-ups. Now you're not working for hypertrophy, so you're not doing 3 sets of 10, etc. But you're doing maybe 5 weighted pull-ups. Okay, stop. Now, 8 hours later, you do that again, and you'll find that you're stronger because you've primed your body a little bit. Right? When we wake up first thing in the morning, we are really sluggish because we haven't moved for 8 hours. Now, if you do something, some action, like pulling up, now you go to work and you do whatever you do. After work, you come back, you get on that pull-up bar, you'll find that it's actually easier, right? That second time that day, because you're really, your brain has already traveled this road early in the day, and to re-travel that path, it gets easier. It's just like when you're driving and you're driving from here to the city, maybe it takes half an hour for the first time. So many distractions. You're using Google Maps, etc. You do that every day for a period of time, and then it's second nature. And I think that's what's going on inside here and the rest of the body.
That's right. So yeah. So it's not just about like learning, academic learning, like you said, physical training also, because it's all in with the, like you said, the brain and how it functions. And with the driving as well. Just so they call this the science of learning, and they trying to have this really into the sort of the teaching, what they call pedagogy, which is like the teaching, what do you call it, skill, basically. Because a lot of the teaching so far, probably during the time when we were going through schools, they say a lot of the teaching was based around romanticizing what kids should be or should be learning in classrooms. So instead of drilling them with times table, I'm sure, I don't know, but there was certain elements of practicing times table, but it wasn't drilled in New Zealand. I was drilled on it when I was back in Korea, and with phonics as well. Like I think that's when you taught how to read each syllable as it sounds. I wasn't. That's how I first learned English when I was 9 years old back in Korea. And so when I first came to New Zealand, I was better at spelling than the students, the native students. When I couldn't actually understand English, my listening was just I couldn't understand. But when the teacher said spell, actually, I could spell it correctly. Or receive. That's an easy one that a lot of students get mixed up. Is it I before E or E before I? I would just get it right. It just wasn't hard at all. So there is what I'm saying is there's some advantages towards what we call this kind of learning, where you could argue it's a rote learning, and a lot of teachers would be opposed to that idea. But I think it's coming back. It's coming back.
But is it really rote learning, or is it simply volume, high volume, and repetition? In the sense that you're getting exposures, because learning to spell, when you rote learn many things like times table, that is something where you're not really having to think outside the box so much. You're not learning a really hard concept, right? It's like once you understand how the English alphabet works, and now you've got 26 letters, you don't need to learn 1 letter per day, right? You should just learn everything in one day. And obviously you'll feel like, oh, I'm never going to get this. But then you do that every day, and then within a week or two, you'll know everything. I mean, that's what they say with the Hangul, right? That you can learn it in a week. Yeah, you can, but then can you retrieve all of that data to read things fluently
Mm-hmm.
within a week, within a month, within a year. No, you can't. That takes lots and lots of exposures. Oh,
Yeah,
you've disappeared. Oh, there you are.
yeah. So this is what I try to do with Kaylee to teach
Yeah.
her Hangul, or the Korean alphabet.
Yes.
But yeah,
Looks like a break dancer.
yeah, it's I guess it's trying to teach her that she has to practice, and it's a repetitive work. But I guess that's where the role of the teacher comes in, is to structure it so that it doesn't seem like drilling down,
Yeah.
monotonous
But
work.
then whose job is it? Because as a teacher, you can only do so much, right? Kids come into your class and you expect them to have prerequisites satisfied. So
not in high school, maybe at university.
not in high school.
Yeah.
All right, let's start from ABC
again. Yeah.
Make sure everyone knows that.
So yeah, to your point that it doesn't really require a lot of thinking. And then
this is a waste of time in school, right? I mean, the thing is, you'll have a class of say 30 kids of various levels, and if you're having to teach the absolute basics, then the higher up kids will get bored, and it is hard to find a balance. And unfortunately, you can't do much about it if the composition of your class is so spread apart.
Yeah.
Right. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess that level of differentiation, that range of, low to high ability, that's another sort of strategy. But this cognitive load theory is just take any student, like your child, and see how they would learn. You can't jam in too much, and just starting with several basic facts or concepts or knowledge they need to learn, and then let that sink in for the day, and then next day you quiz them again.
Yeah. Well, when I taught Kenji ABC, we taught him everything, the whole song in one go, right? Because it doesn't make sense if you just sing A, B, C, D, right? We'll continue tomorrow, right? Because kids obviously learn very well by song, by the way. So we would teach the whole song, and then he would recognize that there are all these letters that he's going to need to know at some point. But he just picks up, the sounds that are cool, or the letters that look nice, and then he'll remember that very well, and then he'll mumble the rest. For example, I remember he took a long time before he knew LMNOP. He used to say LP, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, B. Right?
Yeah.
Because it was just simple, and that's fine because he could fine-tune his knowledge later. And I suppose for kids, the main thing is to get that broad concept out there. And from that point on, you dive deeper and deeper and accept that, look, you're going to lose a few kids who just can't dive deep enough. And the ones that can go further, maybe you would need to set them extra work. Well, not necessarily set them extra work, but just give the work out to everyone and say, look, just do what you can, right? If you don't know, just make up an answer based on what you think is true, and we'll discuss it, right? Because that's the best way to learn, and try to pull in as much real life application, because the so-called unacademic kids, they do tend to have, all kids are smart, right? But if they don't have
so
this,
on that, we'll talk about the behavior curriculum on the next episode. Right.
Yes.
All right. Until then, we'll see you on the next episode.
Oh, less than 1 minute.